This is That One Podcast, and we have a treat for you today. We have a special guest, one who you may be familiar with, one Shizzle Bizzle, my nizzle.
In the hizzle.
I'm talking like Snoop Dogg now. That's a new thing that I'm doing, and you all are just gonna have to fucking deal with it. Mind you, that is the last time I will do it because even I realized how bad that was. But welcome to That One Podcast, everybody.
Hey, you made it.
We did it. Particulars. Always gotta get them out of the way because if we don't have a show. First thing first, Instagram and Twitter at That One Pod, and email us at podthat@gmail.com. We got the Discord going on. We got the Patreon going on. And I bet you're saying, all right, Marvin, that all sounds like a really good idea. But how else do I actually get to it? Well, I could tell you if you shut up and let me finish. Just go to shows.pippa, that's PIPPA.io/that1podcast. And remember, don't spell podcast. Use the number because that's how it works.
Wait,
and that's how they're
You
used.
just said don't spell podcast. Use the number. Podcast is the number.
Oh, shit. Don't spell one.
You're confusing these
God
kids.
Damn it.
Also, remember to rate and review us on whatever your podcast
iTunes.
medium of choice is, but specifically iTunes, because that makes the biggest difference.
For some reason, the internet hasn't figured out that you need to rate things for people to know that they're good. So, yeah. We're literally everywhere, by the way. So
Even right behind you.
Always behind you. Snuggling up, nuzzling the nape of your neck. That's right.
That's us.
Real creepy. Like, you hear that?
You feel that on your neck?
Ooh.
That's not death. That's us.
I was gentle. I'll be gentle. All right. So, Pedro's out because he has a case of the coots. So it's just me and Shiz today.
Coots disease.
But hopefully he gets his cootie shot. Circle, dot. I don't know where you do cootie shots nowadays because we live in the future. But
you got to go to a playground still.
Waiting those long ass lines. I feel.
I know. I hope he has good insurance. Those kid doctors don't fuck around.
How many Snickers bars do you think they take nowadays?
I don't know, but I know they take full size. None of that fun size shit.
They don't even know what the fucking fun size is. They go, oh, you mean regular? And then these kids are spoiled. They know about king size. I never had a king size growing up. Okay?
Right.
That shit
wasn't a thing. I don't know what kind of fun you having, but it's bigger than 1 inch.
Look, if you want to fuck with them, you get those little mini ones. And they're so fucking small. That's what you do when you're on a diet and you hate yourself.
It's only 100 calories. And it tastes great.
At that point, just don't fucking eat Snickers. Like, I don't understand. By the way, saying Snickers the wrong way really puts you in a precarious position. So don't say, make sure you enunciate the whole word. Snickers.
Well, why was that your candy bar of choice?
Because Snickers is clearly the best candy bar out there.
It's a good one, but I don't know.
It literally is the best candy bar. What are you gonna go with some like Baby Ruth bullshit?
Nah, man. I'm just saying, like this. What about Twix? What about
Twix is up there.
What about Milky
Twix,
Way? Like
first of all, everybody, how much I love a good Twix.
Exactly.
Okay, but nothing has the staying power of a Snickers. Snickers you eat when you got that hunger and you're like, man, I could go something, and then you turn into Joe Pesci.
But how much are they paying you?
Look, if they were paying me, I wouldn't have a fucking Patreon, okay? Snickers, pay me. But,
I'm just saying, I'm a fan of the whatchamacallit.
Yeah, but nobody eats that candy bar, Shiz. You're the only one.
I know, it's a goddamn shame.
And all it is a Snicker that decided to get all fancy and do too much. Everybody goes, look, you don't need to do that. Just keep it simple.
No, the Snickers
caramel peanut butter
that decided to get fancy and do too much is the Nutrageous, which is also delicious.
You gonna tell me Werthers are the third best candy? Get out of here!
Werther's
With
are
all these
great.
old.
All right. Werther's original is the
By the
pinnacle of
way,
candy.
is there a Werther's unoriginal?
That's a,
Like what is the counterfeit Werther's? Is it just toffee candy or something? Like I don't understand why they gotta be. Look, we get it. Nobody, you have name recognition like Kleenex. Okay, I understand it's a tissue, but nobody says tissue. You go hand me a Kleenex, right? Uh, you you don't have to say hand me a Werther. It's just nobody says hand me a caramel candy.
no one says that. You say hand me a delicious Werther's.
Nobody. You bet for fuck's sakes, no one's saying hand me a Werther's original. No one does that. So
Well,
stop being so.
I'll put it this way. I guarantee you, if someone offered you a Werther's original, you'd say yes.
Yeah, but nobody's gonna say, "Hey Marvin, do you want a Werther's original?" If they say the whole word, I'm gonna say no because
No, you won't. You're gonna be like, "Yes, that's delicious, please." And can I have another?
No, I'm
for
not
the
gonna
road?
say no. I'm absolutely gonna say no because I don't know what you up to saying the whole name. They're not a Tribe Called Quest. You don't have to say the
No,
whole
Werther's
word.
makes other candies. Like they're just like, this is the original Werther's. This delicious caramel here. Or you could have the Werther's that has like the chocolate on it, or the ones that are other flavors. Like, but the Werther's original.
Look, okay,
The pinnacle of caramel.
No, it's like M&Ms. You don't say, "Do you want some plain M&Ms?"
Yeah, you
go,
do.
Do you want some M&Ms? No. You go plain. You go M&Ms, and then if they have anything in it, then you say what's in it. That's how you distinguish it. Okay, like you don't like anybody goes, "You want some M&Ms?" and they're just regular ass M&Ms. Otherwise, people say, "You want some peanut M&Ms?" No, because nobody who likes peanut M&Ms likes regular M&Ms because there's a brighter side.
Because no
to
one
the
likes
future.
regular M&Ms.
Exactly, which is also why nobody said, "Do you want some regular ass
It's
M&Ms?"
that's just disappointment in candy form. That's like the lowest level of like, all right, I'll eat this candy and I won't be too mad about it. Like,
Hey, do you want this candy that shows I moderately care about you? Have some regular ass M&Ms.
that's like, regular M&Ms always are like before you get to the generic candy at the bottom of your Halloween bag.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, I still got 3 bags of regular ass M&Ms.
Shit, at that point, you might as well have some goddamn Reese's Pieces to spice up your goddamn
Reese's
life.
Pieces are delicious. You take that back.
I didn't say they weren't, but I'm just saying if you're going to go with that, you might as well step your game up a little bit rather than having some plain M&M candy.
That's okay. That's fair. That's true.
All right. So, speaking of desserts, we actually are going to get started with our first topic here, and that is Android P, now known as Android Pie, was released.
Hooray! Who has it?
So, if you have the typical Pixel Nexus devices, you got it.
Do you have it?
And that just so happens to be me. I got it an hour after it got released.
No. Well, aren't we special?
I am special. My mom always tells me that. Thank you. But it is different and not the same, but very similar. Long story short, this update does a lot without doing too much, if that makes sense. One of the things you notice right out of the gate is the status bar up top looks different. They moved the clock over to the left-hand side.
What?
Because, yeah.
Nice.
And there's a reason for that.
Because they're assholes.
And that's because, well, a little bit, but more so because they're getting prepared for that notch life. The next Pixel is going to have a notch, and there are already Android phones with notches, and it looks really weird.
Why?
Yeah.
Why do we need notches?
Because just like, why do we need TVs as thin as they can be while still not having any features that people actually want? Because they think it's a good idea and they want to market it that way. But nonetheless, I have it on my Pixel 2 XL, and I don't, like, at first it was jarring because your eye always went to the top right-hand corner. But as of now, I got used to it within a day. Like, it was pretty, like, regular. There was no big deal. there's some other enhancements, and I'm not going to go into it because there are some people who don't have Android for some reason, and even more so, there are people who have Android, and because of the distribution being so dispersed, there are people who aren't going to have Android P for so long that it's not even worth talking about it.
Yeah.
And even when you get it, it might be such a weird rendition that I might tell you something and you don't even get to see it. If you want to look it up, I recommend looking at new feature videos. There are some really nice enhancements in it. One of the nice things is that they've really focused on improving battery for existing phones. And one of the things that they've done is they've introduced this adaptive battery monitoring system. And what it will do is it will try to keep track of any program that runs in the background that uses an abnormal amount of
eating up your battery
power.
life.
Exactly. And it will ask you, hey, do you want this fucker running in the background or do you want to put it on lockdown? And it'll work when you have it open, but when you don't, it'll keep it. It will keep it from running. On mine, the app that it found almost immediately within like the first 6 or 7 hours was Instagram. And I completely agree. Like, Instagram is not one of those apps that I want it running in the background because I might get something important. Like, I don't give a shit about Instagram in terms of
Instagram's running in the
keeping it
background,
close.
just collecting your data. It's just data mining.
Well, there's that too. So it's on lockdown now, and you can go in and manually choose apps that you want to do like that, but it will try to keep tabs on it for you, and it's actually kind of nice. So the other feature that it's done, and this is kind of awesome too. So we know that they had it for a while, where like if your battery gets to 20% or 15% or however you set it, you can have it go into battery saver mode. But one of the nice features they have now is it will tell you how much time you'll have in that mode based on what you're doing. So, and even more so, it'll tell you what time it will be. So, like, I had it where my battery was going to die. I was like, hey, if you keep doing what you're doing, your battery's going to die by 10:59 this evening. And it's like, oh, shit. Okay, well, that's actually extremely specific and helpful because, like, if you know, like, the problem has been just because you tell me my battery's low, I don't really know what that means, right? Like, how long do I have? Do I have an hour? Do I have 3 hours? If I got 3 hours and I'm going to be at work for another hour, I'm not going to waste time for finding a power adapter to plug in, right? But if I got 45 minutes, okay, and I got an hour, okay, I probably want to make sure I charge it before I leave, so that way I can have it for the trip home. So it's that in and of itself is nice. And there's another feature that I haven't quite gotten a chance to use yet, simply because I've forgotten to install it. And this is something that Google's making a really interesting push, and actually Apple is as well in a different sense, and that's Google's well-being program. And without going too far into it, what it does is it will have it set up so that your phone will essentially start to try to help you limit your phone usage towards the end of the evening when you should be going to bed. So one of the things it'll do is the screen will start to, for lack of a better term, have color. So if you're like using apps, and you'll notice that everything starts to slowly turn more black and white as time goes. And they do this for a couple different reasons. One, to help reduce eye strain, but two, as you notice, shit doesn't have color. It supposedly is supposed to, encourage you to be like, notice, I should say, that, oh yeah, it's time for me to go to bed. And if you're on using shit like Instagram, then obviously seeing everything in black and white, I should say, will be pretty noticeable and that should be your cue that, yeah, it's time for me to go to bed. Again, haven't used it yet, but ironically enough, companies that make a phone and market it in a way in which you should be using it all the time, they're trying to introduce things that make you not use it so much, which is interesting.
I don't know. I'm still running Nougat, and so I mean,
Yeah.
I was like, there's got these features, and I don't know. I just start to wonder how much of a difference it's going to make. I get the point that you're making, and I guess in a sense, I feel like they are trying to make you use your phone more by doing those things
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because essentially they're trying to make your battery life last longer so that you can use your phone more, so that
Yeah.
you can
But
now you can do what you want to do on your phone and not what your phone was wanted to do itself, or.
exactly. And because I mean, a lot of times it really does come down to making sure you can use your phone when you want to use it rather than just incessantly being on it and losing track of time and not realizing, hey, I've lost out on a lot of my day. Because
Yeah.
that's actually another thing too, is it'll also keep track of how much time you spent on various apps, and you can actually limit yourself. So if you know you're somebody who gets lost on Twitter for hours on end and you want to focus, you can have it set where if you hit, say, the 1 hour mark, it sends an alert to be like, hey, it's been an hour, go do some fucking shit. And I'm sure it'll say it in a much more
Yeah, now see
friendly way.
that is important, because
Yeah.
people do get stuck on that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah. And like for me personally, I don't know. I'm an interesting use case. The one thing I pride myself on is I have pretty good self control. There's some things I tolerate. Like I know this is going to be a time suck, but I'm okay with it being a time suck. And then there are other things where I go, no, I won't let you intrude on my life, or I won't waste too much time dealing with, and so I actively choose to avoid it. Like I had a guy who showed me this game. He's like, "Oh man, I just started playing this game on my phone." I'm like, "No, I'm not gonna play it." He goes, "Why not?" I go, "It looks fun," but I know this is the type of game that I will get lost in, and I don't want to do that. So I just don't. And even like when I'm on Twitter or Instagram or something on my phone, I I'm very self aware about time, and I go, well, that's been enough. I might as well do something else.
yeah,
So yeah, it's there are some people. I mean, the way apps are designed, they're designed to keep you engaged within that app. They don't want you to leave. So I mean, there is something to be said about making sure people are getting some assistance when it comes to that. Because I mean, hell, that's why we have so many people, fucking texting while driving and shit like that, because
gotta stay on the phone. Yeah.
people have to be constantly interacting or updated or whatever.
Classic FOMO.
Exactly. Where me, I don't give a shit if I miss out. Like you know how I am. I still am a strong proponent of a phone call because I'd rather talk to you for 5 minutes and be done with what I have to do and be focused on something else rather than texting for an hour trying to figure out shit, and then shit gets lost in translation, and then basically you just give up anyway, and it's just a shit show. And this comes back from, when you and I had, let's just say, enough friends. Like, I mean, when you got like 20 plus people trying to organize something, and then you're having to delegate who's in charge of a specific group, and then they're trying to delegate, it's much faster just to talk,
Yeah.
because we've evolved to talk. Like, we have evolved where we make audible noises and we can understand it and quickly discern what the other person means so that you can just not have to waste time figuring out, well, what does this mean? And then, God forbid, you message somebody and you're having a back and forth, and then they put the phone down and don't pay attention to it. And then you lose your shit. And they might have legit reason, but it doesn't matter because you're expecting an instant response. But maybe they put their phone down and take a shit. And you go, well, you can take your phone in. Well, maybe there are those people that don't like to take their phone in when they take a shit.
We live in the future now. Everyone takes their phone when they take a shit. Except
yeah, this is true. Which, by the way, I sanitize my phone.
I was going to say, you should sanitize it.
Exactly. But nonetheless, I wonder how many cases of pink eye have like increased.
I wondered that too. Huh.
But I digress.
If there's any, public health researchers listening, if you want to look into that or send us some letter.
That seems like one of those things that people want to be a thing. So researchers have researched it ad nauseum, but they probably haven't gotten the results they want, so they just won't talk about it. Because if you tell people, hey, don't worry, it's okay to take your phone into the bathroom. Oh, shit. Hell in a handbasket. It's pandemonium will ensue. So they'd probably rather not say anything than say the other. But yeah, I think, people just should be aware of their time in all matters, whether it's texting, fucking, playing games, whatever the case may be. Or fucking, look, sometimes you just gotta call it quits and just say enough is enough and just wrap it up because you can put yourself in a precarious position. You don't want to be on that. I forget, what's the name of that show where like sex sent me to the ER or something?
That's
like
a show.
Oh yeah, dude. Like there's all these stories of people doing really like doing shit. Fucking and they hurt themselves and so then they gotta go to the ER. I think there was one where like this girl was like trying to be sexy and she jumped on this dude's dick and broke it. Which is funny when it's not you, but goddamn. And then obviously you get the classic shit stuck up your ass,
Of course.
I think there's this one couple that was, I don't know if they were fucking doggy style. I don't know if they were doing anal or something, but somehow they got stuck together. So
I refuse to believe that.
Oh, watch the show.
All right, I'm gonna look the show. We're gonna talk about this next time.
Let me see if that's the name of it as I look for it on my computer.
They did not get stuck together. That's like.
Yeah, Sex Sent Me to the ER. That's the name of the show.
Fuck off.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The funny thing is, I typed "sex sent me to the ER," and one of the first things I get is when I start to type in S and T. Well, obviously you do ST, but like stuck together.
It could have been that.
There's gonna be tons of that. Yeah, there's an episode of it is from 2014, I think. 2014. Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, send me that.
But so yeah. Just be like, I think people just need to. People like getting lost in things, right?
I thought you were gonna say people like getting stuck together.
No, nobody likes that. Well, somebody's probably really into it, but nonetheless, people like being so involved with something that they lose themselves in it. But me personally, I like having control over everything that I do. So the fact that an app makes you lose track of time, it actually makes me angry. I hate when like I've had games on my phone that like I play it and I go, this is a really good game, and then I like miss a TV show or a part of a TV show because I wasn't paying attention. I'm like, nope, I'm done with you. I can't play you because you make me miss shit that I like more than you. And that's the definition of an addict, right? Is when you take part in an activity that affects you so drastically that you miss out on things that matter. Yeah. And I refuse to let myself become an addict.
Very healthy.
So yeah, exactly. So yeah. In the meantime, if you do get that update, check it out. I think what I am gonna do though is I'm gonna put it on my phone. I'm gonna test it out and just see if my willpower is as good as I think it is. Because I will say this. There are times where I keep doing that. Oh, I'll go to bed in another 15 minutes, in another 20 minutes, in another 5 minutes. You know what I mean? And then I just go, well, I'll just watch this video instead, you know? And that's probably the biggest, like, vice that I have is anything to stay awake longer, I'll just take part in whether I should or not. So I'm going to try it, see how it works, and I'll let you know how that is working out next episode. But yeah, it's we'll see. I am intrigued. All right, so that's Android P. The next thing we're going to talk about, they're two stories. They're separate stories, but they're similar in a certain way, and you'll sort of see what I mean as we sort of go along here. So, the first story here is about a gamer that goes by the tag Face Sensor, and he's not just any gamer. He is a professional gamer, or at least a budding professional gamer, and we're not just, the reason we're talking about him isn't the fact that he is a professional gamer, but it has to do how this has affected his life essentially. So he was dating a young lady that goes by the name Yanette Garcia. You may or may not know who she is. She is a weather woman for a news crew out in Mexico. She was, I don't know if she was voted, but she's often called the world's sexiest weather girl. And you've probably seen her before, even if you don't know who she is. Oftentimes, I've seen her image on websites that try to have clickbait shit, you know, like you go to a website and you see an ad that just goes, "You won't believe what she does next," and you click it and it's just like her talking about like a storm front or something stupid, you know. But nonetheless, very, very attractive woman, and these two were dating for some time, but the guy in question, and his name is Douglas Martin. I'm not going to call the man by his gamer tag because, you know, he's a grown man. He deserves that. My man Doug, he decides that he was going to break up with her recently. Now, a guy breaking up with a hot girl isn't that newsworthy. But what is newsworthy is why he broke up with her. So the reason he broke up with her was due to the fact that he wanted to focus on his pro gaming career. Essentially, he said he didn't want to just break up with her. He just wanted to take a break from dating in general.
I mean, arguably still not newsworthy.
Yeah, I still agree. And the fact of the matter is, if I remember correctly, they started dating before she became the weather girl in Mexico. And so after she became a weather girl in Mexico, they started doing long distance dating. And as anyone who's dated in a long distance relationship will attest to, that shit gets to be really stressful in and of itself. But at the same time, he's like, I'm at a point in my career where I really think I can make something happen with this. And for those of you who don't consider it, professional gaming is, the reason they call it esports is because it's like a sport. You have to be nimble. You have to, usually the younger you are, the better off you are, only because your reaction time is good enough to play at that level. Yeah. And it takes a lot of time, dedication to it. But because it is video games, internet has just been fucking torching this dude. I mean, they've all, like, and of course, it's the generic, oh, well, this guy would rather play video games and be with this hot girl. How dumb can you be? Or it's like, you rather look at Call of Duty than look at this girl? What's wrong with you? And it's just like, the fact of the matter is like you said, this isn't newsworthy. What difference does it make? Like, any guy breaking up with a hot girl is always going to be, a conversation piece because people like to think that men are brainless zombies that they go boobs, bud, and they just like stay there and they don't and they will deal with anything and everybody expects that the guy will a guy should and will deal with any crazy girl just for the fact that she's hot. And to a certain extent, a lot of guys will. But that doesn't mean that boobs and butt is the only thing that matters in a relationship to most guys. If that were the case, literally every guy would be with only hot chicks. But I like to think that people have more substance to them. But with that said, like, what difference does it make? Like, if it's video games, if this dude was doing it to get a law degree, would people be saying the same fucking thing? He's probably going to make, he has the potential to make a lot of money. And if that's the case, then let him do him. And who's to say they don't get back together and all that shit, But it's just like, I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy for just thinking that this is ridiculous that they're flaming this dude because he decides to leave, quote unquote, the world's sexiest weather girl.
Well, I think I think it's more so part of like not just that there's a like expectation, but just the idea of like it's a lot of people who are third parties and like it's that idea like they're boiling it down to that she is just a good looking woman and that he's stupid for leaving her. But like, as we all know, in any relationship, there's more than just how you look. Like, for one,
it should be.
Yeah, who's to say if their relationship was working well,
Yeah.
And
of course, and not to cut you off, but of course he said, we had, really good time, really good years. But that's because maybe he's not going to be a dick like, yo, you don't know, this bitch is crazy. She does. Like, maybe he's not trying to put her out on Front Street, but, like, just chill.
Well, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's just, like, silly.
Like, it doesn't even have to be her, like, it doesn't have to be her being crazy. It could have really just been, like, he's like, I can't be in a relationship right now because I want to focus on my career. And like you said, if he was doing something else that people, respected more, for lack of a better term, right now, like because it is video games, like then they would question it less. But like I said, it's still that idea of like people just boiling it down to like he left a good looking woman to play video games. What a fool, But like this guy made a personal decision in his own fucking life, like to stop being in his relationship and pursue his career, and that's fine. Like, and like
it should be.
Yeah, and they should like it's these people. I mean, it's disrespectful to both of them, and like especially her because they are just look at it like, well, she is really attractive, and sure, part of her career benefits from her being good looking, and I mean, it probably doesn't hurt her to be regarded as the world's best looking weather woman or whatever, but he's like, do you want to be known for being the dude who dates the best looking, weather woman, or do you want to be known for your own shit,
Yeah. Yeah. Completely agree. So yeah, there's that. But again, I told you there were two stories. So let's go to the second story. Again, of the same vein, definitely different sort of MO, but for those of you who are unaware, there's a game that has come out that has pretty much swept the internet by storm. It came out of nowhere, and when I say this, I know because I remember hearing about it when it first came out, and then being disinterested, and then getting interested as they sort of evolved the game into something different. But it is the most played game out there as we speak, and that's Fortnite. I won't get into what the game is and all that shit because I know some of you don't care, could care less, but I digress. With this being one of the most popular games out there, a huge industry, many huge industries have spun off from it, right? As you would expect, when something's popular, people are going to try to find a way to make money on it, even if they aren't the ones who made that popular medium. And in this particular instance, what apparently has been happening is parents are paying to have Fortnite tutors for their kids. And what's happening is there's in the particular story that sort of blew up, there is a former pro esports guy, um, who goes by the name of Convertible as his tag, and he charged, and essentially like the services run anywhere between $10 to $25 an hour, and they help them over the internet to improve their gameplay. And again, people are freaking out because all people hear is somebody parents are paying for their kid to be good at video games. Um, and again, people are seeing it for what it is at surface level, but they're not looking at the big picture. Um, the most popular, so there's a platform where people watch other people play games, and I know that sounds crazy, but how many of you guys watch football? How many of you guys watch uh, basketball? How many of you guys, and I'll even go as far as to say, how many of you watch a movie about guys pretending to play basketball or pretending to play football? I digress. But um, there's a streamer who streams on the platform Twitch, which is probably the most popular platform to watch such content. And he goes by the name Ninja. And Ninja has millions of followers. I don't know how many followers he has, and frankly, I don't watch Ninja myself, but I've seen his stuff, and he's really really good, and he's like a kind of a real like down to earth guy, and so that it helps. But this dude makes millions of dollars from playing video games. On top of that, he has been covered in newspapers and magazines. So like he's getting his name out there. And a lot of parents are looking at this and they're seeing like, man, maybe my kid could be that next person. And frankly speaking, I don't see that a problem with them paying for their kids to be tutored in this. And I will even use personal experience. Growing up, my brother and I play basketball, still do to this day, but my dad actually paid for us to go to, basketball camps and training sessions and all this shit. And I think we both knew neither one of us were ever going to be NBA players. But at the same time, going to that stuff did help us improve how we played. And like we really got a lot from it. And we felt better when we played, even though we weren't playing, for championship tournaments on like these really high level skills sets. Like, what? I don't see the problem with paying for a tutor to help your kid be better at something that they want to do. And frankly speaking, $10 to $25 an hour. Piano lessons are more expensive than that shit. And let's be honest, your kid is probably has less likely odds to play at Carnegie Hall than they are to be a pro esports gamer. But maybe that's just me.
Like they don't even have to go pro on this. First of all, I want to say like I think part of this is just like sensationalization. Like
Mm-hmm.
I doubt there's that many people out there like getting tutors for their kids to be better at video games. It's like somebody in the news media caught wind of it. It's like, oh, I ought to put this out here, and a lot of people get outraged because they're paying how much to do what video games? Because there's also that outmoded way of thinking that like video games are like there's still people who think that video games are just these things that kids play, and so like and it's like, but like you said, there are people out there who make a living. There's a lot of people out there who make a living playing video games, and it's I think part of it is like the media atmosphere that we're in now. Like you can be, even though there's so much information and so much out there, like you can be still wholly ignorant to something that's like millions of people are paying attention to,
Absolutely.
So I think that there's a lot of people out there who like just are completely ignorant to like the video game world and video game culture, and so they're surprised when they hear that, because they think it's just a thing people do to like dick around. It's just it's just
Yeah.
a game. It's just toys. But like to the point of like what you were saying, with like sending kids like going to basketball camp, you're not going to become a pro. But even then, with video games, I think it's even more likely. Not that they're going to become a pro, but they could enter like there's competitions and tournaments all the time.
Yeah.
And that's
Absolutely.
giving them a better chance, a better edge, Like so they don't have to be a pro, but they could win a even a local tournament. They could win some money, like or just have a good time, like some people just want to be the best competitor they can be. Like there's nothing wrong with it, So
I'll even go a different route. So we've been talking about reaching these upper echelon type players. Now, granted, you probably will have to be really good to play in this limited platform, but there are more schools every single year, every single semester that are introducing esports teams to their school.
yeah.
And there are people who are getting legit scholarships to either play or, in some very rare instances, coach esports. And frankly speaking, if my kid has better odds of getting a scholarship and all I gotta do is hire a fucking tutor, I want to do it. With the way schools cost nowadays, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's another like sports or music. It's another way to have the potential to get a scholarship or anything like that, like you're saying. And
Exactly. So, again, these two stories are, I won't say very different. They're different, but the whole point is perspective. Like, I just want to put perspective on anything because I think nowadays everybody's so quick to react to something without actually looking at the big picture and not realizing what it actually means as a whole. I'll even go back and throw out one thing that I reacted to this and thought this was ridiculous and it's never gonna go, and now we're all like looking stupid as we take part in it, and that's bottled water.
bottled water. People
Like,
did
for real.
get outraged about bottled water. You're right.
I remember people like, you gonna fucking charge me for water just because you put it in a little plastic? Who the fuck are you to charge me for bottled water? Now, I know people that don't drink water if it don't come out of bottled water. And in some instances, it's justifiable. I'm talking about you, Flint. They still don't have clean water.
Right.
Just saying. But in other instances, it's just these motherfucking sedity people who want to drink the purest of pure water. There are people who drink fucking glacier water. Think about this, okay? The thing that indicates that our planet is fucked is being put into a bottle that is helping us be more fucked.
But have you
Like, it's
ever
so
had
insane to me.
water shipped to you from a glacier? That shit is the most refreshing water.
Now, look, I think we've all seen The Other Guys and seen the glacier cucumber water and gone, I want to experience that. But at the same
And just go
time,
to your local Whole Foods.
I'm at the same time, I'm going to say this. The glacier cucumber water was in a glass, not a plastic cup. Just saying. So, all right. Let's go to the next thing. So, again, I think this episode is going to be called just perspective because the next stories are also sort of that same vein. So, yeah, Chris Hardwick. For those of you who don't know, and if you're a nerd, it's impossible for you not to know who the fuck Chris Hardwick is, only because he's been in the nerddom since fucking... was he around during Tech TV?
He was doing other shit then.
Yeah, he came around when G4 became a thing, right?
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Let's see. I know we know him from some other shit. He was like hosting game shows and shit before that. Didn't he host he hosted a game show that was on MTV that Singled Out.
Wasn't it Singled Out? Yeah. So either way, he's been in the lexicon of the youth for some time. And he sort of evolved to be like seen as like the sort of I'm trying to think of the word, the representative for geekdom as a whole. Fuck, he even has a network that was called Nerdist. So yeah, there's that. But nonetheless, he was dating a woman by the name of Chloe Dykstra, and they dated for quite a long time. But ultimately, they ended up having a pretty messy breakup. Um, and for a while, nothing really came of it. And so people just, just attribute it to being that typical Hollywood, people dating, they break up and go do other shit. But recently, at this point, it's like a month or two ago, right? Is that right? Mm-hmm. It ended up, Chloe ended up coming out and basically accusing Chris of a lot of really fucked up shit.
Well, okay, so see, here was the thing, though. She wrote this letter just saying that, like, a former boyfriend did that. And people, the more fucked up thing to me is that people just assumed that it was him.
Yeah.
Like,
but later on, she didn't say it wasn't him. People were like, "Are you talking about another boyfriend? Are you talking about Chris?" And with what's going on with, Me Too, people would understand her not wanting to name her accuser if she doesn't feel comfortable, and so, but people are also going to run with that. And if someone says, "Hey, my boyfriend, one of my old boyfriends hit me," and they go, which one? Was it Chris? Because that was the last guy you dated, and you guys had a really messy breakup. And she goes, "Oh yeah, I don't know. I don't want to talk about it." Like if that person isn't the one who did it, you would say something, right? Like you would say,
I mean,
"Oh
would
yeah,
you?
no, I don't want." Think about it, right?
I'm just,
like
I'm not her. I agree. I get what you're saying. I'm just playing devil's advocate because, like,
yeah, I think about it like this: if I broke up with somebody and they didn't do anything bad, what I want is, and especially if they are someone who is a public figure, why would I want to essentially throw them under the bus for something someone else did? Right? Like, and to be fair, like, they could have done that ad nauseum and gone through her list of boyfriends or whatever. But, like, unless you've dated two people, there's no reason to say, "Oh, I don't want to deny this one person," if they aren't the ones who did it. Because what essentially is going to do is what happened is the media is going to run with it, and people are going to say, "Oh yeah, this is the guy who did it," and run with it and try and say he needs to pay for his misdoings. But yeah, just to give you an idea of what because there's a lot of forms of abuse, and from everything I saw, I'm not sure if there was like physical abuse per se. There might have been, because again, the stories that have come out of this have been really sort of confusing. But there was everything from mental abuse to, I guess, a form of physical abuse where she was confined to certain areas and not allowed to leave. And it just is like some really, really fucked up shit. And so, naturally, once news came out of this, people started to distance themselves from Chris Hardwick. And Chris Hardwick, because he is sort of seen as that figure in geekdom, it has his hand in a lot of pots. God knows he hosts a plethora of shows on AMC. He had his own sort of entertainment network called Nerdist, and all of them distanced themselves from Chris Hardwick. Well, as time sort of passes, Chris is denying these things. And this is that weird space where people are denying things and people just get more mad because, like, you need to own what you did. But what if you didn't do anything? So, as the news starts to evolve, so people are trying to find proof to bury him, because that's the thing with the Me Too movement, right? Is somebody saying something is bad and can have repercussions, but if you have proof that this person did what they said they didn't do, you basically can ostracize them from whatever industry they're in, because that person is shown to be a liar and an abuser, and nobody wants to work with someone who is both. Although some people will lie to themselves if the person is an abuser and just tolerate it. But that's a story for another day. But as time sort of evolves, essentially, Chloe's stories start to sort of change a little bit, and there are questions that start to come up of this. And then Chris starts, I think at one point, Chris even presented proof of him not doing what she claimed him to do. And it's been a while, but I think it consisted of him, like the message he sent her when he broke up with her. It was essentially like, look, and without having it in front of me, I can't, say verbatim what it is, but essentially it was something along the lines of, you know what, this relationship isn't working out. I like you a lot, and I want you to take care of yourself, but you aren't doing that, and yada, yada, yada. And like, this is like I think it was a text message, and this wasn't like a bullshit text message you send somebody that you don't give a shit about. Like, this text message
went on. He broke up with her via text message?
Yeah, but like, if you have a crazy girlfriend who loses her shit, which is kind of what it sounded like in the text message, like, you've probably tried to do it face to face and they don't accept that. So you go, look, I need to just be done with this. And like, it literally goes on for pages, right? And this is just him talking to her, and her responses don't really support her claims. A lot of it is like her saying, look, I'm sorry I did this to you, and give me another chance. Like, it's her trying to get him back, which there is that whole Stockholm syndrome thing where people think that they can't go without their abuser because they've been sort of trained into thinking that the abuser is a necessity in their life, But nonetheless, it's a lot of, none of it is even shit that I have done when breaking up with ex. Like, fuck you, you're crazy, I'm not doing. Like, he was very, like, for lack of a better term, professional and like his messaging with her, and it wasn't like she wasn't, but at the same time, it like, he basically just did everything. And I almost sort of think of, he did it because he's like, look, I know how ridiculous she can be, and I'm going to do what I can to just show everybody I didn't want to be part of this, and so, yeah, it essentially, Chloe's story sort of falls apart, and people ask her this, like, hey, he submitted this information, what do you have to say in retort? Exactly. And she basically fell flat on her face, and she didn't have it. Well, that happened, but then something else happened. And like, they go, okay, well, who saw this? What happened? And like, she goes, well, nobody ever saw it. And and that's not to say that anyone ever would, but there's a lot of things that made people start to go, you know what? Maybe something's off with this story. And I'm not giving it justice because, again, I don't have all the information in front of me. But nonetheless, after that sort of starts to evolve a little bit differently, AMC, who basically kicked Chris Hardwick off of his own show that he started with The Talking Dead, they actually backtrack. And they're like, you know what? now that we sort of have a full understanding of the situation, we're going to take Chris back. And we are going to bring him back on for all the shows that he was part of. So, it's just one of these really weird stories where, you know, as someone who tries to be a feminist in as much as he can, you initially want to go and believe the woman because there are so many women who are essentially not believed. They're told that they're making it up, they're lying, or that they're just doing it for ulterior motives, But, this is one of those instances where you probably should actually dig into the information first before jumping to any conclusion whether you do or don't believe someone, because again, like, it could have very easily turned into a situation where Chris was blackballed in the industry,
Yeah.
and when your whole shtick is being likable, it kind of makes it hard to sort of keep at it. But I know. I kind of went on there, but I'm curious to hear if you have additional thoughts or.
Yeah, well, I think another big part of the story is like, or big issue, is that these major companies don't have solid policy on these things, because like everyone's scrambling because of the Me Too movement, if you will. So their reaction is, oh, well, zero tolerance. That's the easiest way to go. It makes us look good. Like,
Yeah.
and then, and having that be your policy, like, either you have to commit to that, or like you backtrack and you do this, and then you look like you don't know what you're doing, and so it's the zero tolerance policy has the opposite effect, which just makes you look bad because you overreacted, and now you're trying to redeem yourself by taking someone back, and now you just look like you're scrambling, which was if you had. But of course, and it puts them also in a precarious position, because if they had just said like, well, what you essentially said, which is like, we want to wait to get a better understanding of the story, people would have, shit on them. They would have said they were protecting him, or et cetera, et cetera. And so like, it's a hard situation to navigate, because you do want to you want to provide a safe environment. You don't want to promote people who are doing negative things, yada yada. But like, there's also like I was making the point before, like, just because she said it, like, for one, it could be true, but she was being so ambiguous. Was she saying it about him? We still don't know what the case is,
Yeah.
And so it's like, because a similar thing happened with I'm more interested, like, just in the companies, deciding how to protect or to let people go. I can't remember, there was a video game company like a month or two ago that let go a translator because she lashed out on her harassers online, and that was their policy, was like, well, we zero tolerance for that, and there were people saying that, like, well, she was being harassed, like, by all these sexist gamers, like, just because she was a woman. They were tweeting at her she's bad at her job, she's the one specifically making these games bad, all this dumb shit like that. And she lashed back, was like, shut the fuck up, yada yada yada. And there was another guy that worked with her that came to her defense, and they both got let go. The company's policy was that, like, you represent us, so in doing that, you made the company look bad, so we have to let you go.
Yeah.
Which, if that's their policy, like, at least they stuck to it. Like, but then in doing that, they also, like, make themselves, like, they don't have to address the larger issue. They can completely ignore that, which makes it easy for them, but it's also very shitty,
Mm-hmm.
And then you have on the other end a few weeks ago, New York. I think it was the New York Times, maybe New York Times, New Yorker. One of the they
Yeah, one of
yeah, they
those.
just hired that tech writer, and like then of course people dug into her tweets and said she was being racist towards white people because she like had tweets that are like
Yeah,
forget white men or some shit like that, and then
we'll get into that in a second, but yeah.
yeah, but still it's like, and then the New York Times came out and they were like, hey, like we talked to her about it, you know, and we all agree that she made a bad decision. We're not firing her, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then people were saying like that the New York Times failed at a big opportunity to like tell people essentially to fuck off and like stop doing shit like this. And they kind of
Yeah.
kowtowed to the harassers. But I'm like, oh, they're still a major corporation, and at least they like defended their employee. Like they're doing better than some people, you know. But I
Yeah.
think that's the
And
larger issue.
yeah. And here's the thing, like there still have been ramifications from this for Chris. Like it isn't as though he's back where he was beforehand. He's his name is still off of the Nerdist website, and well, it was pulled off the Nerdist website, and they put it back on. But like, I mean, how does that? Are they still gonna let him run it? You
No, I
know?
think he parted ways with Nerdist for some different reasons that were also not good from what
Gotcha.
I
But
understand.
they did take his name off the site,
Yeah,
which is,
it just so
significant.
happened that that all happened around the same time. But from my understanding, and I can't remember the specifics, it was like it
Gotcha.
was different reasons, but also they didn't look good for him. So
I'm sure it didn't help.
exactly.
But also too, even though he's back on the Talking Dead series on AMC, um, a group of female staffers on the executive production team left. And I get it. I get them leaving. If they don't feel as though the evidence is enough to refute this woman's claims, which again, we still don't know if she is saying that it was him. Although the based off of some of the information I heard, I think she's basically said it was him without saying Chris Hardwick did this to me. You know,
Mm.
but that's the thing, right? Is now there's always going to be this asterisk on this guy's name, whether or not he did it, and that's it's the only way it goes away is if she flat out says no, I lied, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen for better or for worse. Because again, if this is true, then why should she take it back? But at the same time, if it isn't, what's the likelihood that someone takes it back after going this deep into it? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So there's that. But the other story that again, slightly different but of the same vein, has to do with James Gunn, and again, a story that has gotten a lot of attention. James Gunn, director of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, um, was fired by Disney over some tweets that he sent. If I'm not mistaken, these are before his relationship with Disney. Am I right?
Oh yeah, I think they were like along like years ago.
Yeah. So, and again, this is one of those things where um, I think everybody can agree the tweets he sent weren't in good taste. Um, and on top of that, like this is one of those things where a comedian tries to be, or someone who sees himself as a comedian, whether you consider James Gunn a comedian or not is up to you. But someone trying to be funny says something that they think is hilarious, but isn't. And yes, Twitter is one of those platforms where you can take it back. But if you think it's funny, by the time you realize it's not funny, you're probably not thinking about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless, he did say some things that were not very good. But at the same time, this is before his relationship with Disney, and essentially, the people who found this weren't you know Disney lovers who just couldn't take him representing the company. It basically was some alt-right trolls who were digging through trying to find anything on someone who leans to the left, and they wanted to make an example of it to show, to basically use the PC culture against itself, you know. And to that extent it worked. The cast and crew, well, I don't know about the crew, but the cast has come out and in a joint message basically said, look, what he did was wrong, but it shouldn't get him fired. And also, John Batista has gone as far as to say, I will do the minimal amount of work I have to contractually if James is not part of this. So he's taken a very staunch stance on it. And he's gone as far as to say he's a good guy and he said something dumb in the past, but at the same time, he's been nothing but kind to fans and the people who watch the series, and he generally treats people well, and that actions speak louder than words in a very literal sense here. So yeah, this is one of those things where, going back to what you said with that reporter who and she claims, and what she claims and what's actually true is debatable, but in her tweets, and correct me if I'm wrong, Shiz, she basically was talking about she had been harassed by people who were making fun of her based on her ethnicity, essentially, you know, trying to question her sexuality, like just being like general dick mongrels.
Yeah, just trolls.
And her claim is that she was reacting to these people, and that's how that happened. Although the way that I've seen some of this stuff, it seems like it was a little bit different than that, because the way it appears to me, at least, is people were being assholes to her, and she goes, well, fine, if they're gonna be assholes to me, I'm just gonna be an asshole in general as well.
Yeah,
you know, like
that's what she said.
It was that if you can't beat them, join them. But instead, but where she loses out in that argument is she doesn't name someone specifically. Like if someone says something disrespectful to you, I think people would justifiably understand if you react to them. But I mean, if you say something and you don't name names, it kind of like it leaves room for ambiguity, and that's all I'm trying to say.
Are you, like, if you're getting a bunch of shitty like tweets and like online comments, are you going to remember like each specific one?
Well, here's the thing. Like, there's always a straw that breaks the camel's back, and the type of reaction she had to it wasn't something that like harkened back to like, I'm tired of people saying this, and this, and it's just like, you can't just say like all white people are assholes, or like it's too vague, right? Like, it's just, like, you have to narrow your audience, you know. Like, if there are people who are doing shitty things, you can't the instant use, like, it's I'll flip it on you, okay? Think about all those people that get in an argument with a black person and then say, you N-words are all the same. You can't do that. Nobody's going to go, well, that one black guy did make him mad. It's a slippery slope, right? Like, if we can't accept it one way, we can't accept it the other way. And that's all I'm trying to say. And I think, like, you have to, if you're going to go after an audience, you have to know your audience and how they're going to look at it. And frankly speaking, you have to know how the other audience is going to take it, because they're always going to try to make you the bad guy, even though you're the one who's been attacked. And that's all I'm trying to say.
Well,
go ahead.
Oh no, I just, in that situation, I feel like there was this big conversation about like, well, like, what is racism? Like, because she said things like, you know, white males can fuck off and things like that, you know, which, like, okay, yeah. Like, whatever. That's how I look at it. Like, who is that really hurting? No one. Like, So it's just once again, it's like the trolls like looking for something and trying like essentially trying to use that PC culture, like you said, to their end because like the argument then becomes like, well, this is racist towards white people, or like, and then it's like, well, what do you define as racism? Like, is this statement really hurting someone and affecting their quality of living? Guess what? It's not. You know.
Yeah.
So
But again, it's that it all comes down to one thing, and that's perception, right? It's how things appear. And I had an old boss who the one thing she would tell us all the time, all the supervisors, even and especially the reps that would work for us, she said, perception is everything. And it's true. People aren't going to do the work. I mean, look at all the stories we've talked about so far today. No one is going to do the work unless they truly care about it to go, oh, well, this is why this person did this, right?
mhm.
Like for years, people have talked about Rose McGowan as though she was crazy and she was loopy and all this shit. But then you find out all the sexual abuse she's had in her past. People go, oh, I can see why she reacts to these events in this way. But again, no one's done. People had plenty of time to do the work, but nobody did it. And in this instance, like I pulled it up. These are two of her tweets, or three of her tweets. I'm gonna read them. One says, "Oh man, it's kind of sick how much joy I get out of being cruel to old white men." And then a second one is white people marking up the internet with their own opinions like dogs pissing on fire hydrants. And then another and those two you go, okay, I can see like how like she can be an open-ended reaction to what's going on. But then you get hashtag cancel white people. And it's like, okay, like eventually there has to be some context to your reaction. Otherwise, you just look like someone who's being racist. Whether you're being racist or not is a whole different story. Whether you're being reactionary to things that have happened to you is a whole other story. But again, it's perception, right? If they can find a reason to say you're the bad guy, then that's how they're going to treat you, like a bad guy.
Mhm.
And frankly speaking, I it's I don't find using the phrase white people as being offensive. But again, you flip it. What if it's black people? Cancel black people. Nobody's gonna stand for that shit, and that's just how it works.
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying is like it comes down to like what is racist, like what is racism, and because we have a long established history of
Oh, absolutely.
a certain race of people in power, if you will, and other marginalized races not so much. Like
Yeah.
like I said, making those statements, they're almost innocuous. Like
Oh, I think so.
yeah, like there's not going to be like a lot of like there aren't people of color power marches like that are where they're going and beating up white people. Like like this shit isn't like white people aren't being discriminated against for various reasons. Like there's from this, I'll have to find it to send it to you. But from reading an article about this situation and kind of like the ensuing conversation, like someone linked to, I think it was Pew, Pew Research Center. They did a study on reverse racism, if you will, like white people, and like a majority of white people feel that like racism against whites exists, but out of that majority, like a majority of that majority had never experienced it. They just believed it existed, and like a very
I'm
small,
sure somebody has had it.
a very small percentage like claimed they were discriminated against, and of that percentage, a majority of those people, like you were talking about before, couldn't tell you when it happened. They just said it happened.
Yeah.
Like they couldn't give you a specific.
I'm sure it has. Yeah.
So
Well, and see, I think the overall issue I have goes back to both these last two stories, both James Gunn and well, Chris Hardwick is a little bit different, but in at least with the reporter and James Gunn, at what point is someone not to be punished for their past behavior? Like, what is that cutoff point? Because let me tell you, in my mind, how I sort of treat these sort of events. If, let's say, I'll use James Gunn because it's the easiest to do because we have more background. So let's say he's hired on by Disney. Disney is not the type of team that just hires people willy-nilly, right? I got a feeling that they do their research into these people, figure out what they're into, all that shit. And at a certain point, they have to go, you know what? I'm fine with hiring this person. But at what point do we say, okay, if you did something bad in the past, you can't be punished for it currently? If anything, I would be perfectly fine to say, hey, James Gunn, you said some really fucked up shit, and I think you should apologize for it. And if you do it again, one instance is enough to get you out of the door.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, essentially, like,
right?
Put him on parole. Like,
yeah. And I'll even go as far as use it for a completely different story that we haven't talked about. In baseball, there was, and I don't remember if it was one or two guys, but I know that there's one in particular. There's a guy who, when he was a kid, a teenager, as it were, he posted some shit on Twitter calling black people the N-word. And, like, yeah, as someone who's a black people, I didn't necessarily take, solace in that he said these statements. I think it's fucked up. But at the same time, the type of shit I did and said as a 17-year-old kid, 33-year-old Marvin, who's almost twice his age, goes, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why would you do that? So this kid says these things. Now the man has grown up, and now people are saying he should lose his job. And I'm going, why? I get what he said then. If you hired 17-year-old him, yeah, fire him once he says it. But this guy's like, he's like 6-7 years older now. And yes, 6-7 years doesn't sound that long, but the difference, the mindset between a 17-year-old and 24-year-old, let's be honest, they're a little bit different, right? And I think, if anything, you go, okay, this behavior isn't something we want to represent our organization. You need to apologize, and we need to make it clear that if this behavior is exhibited in any way going forward, you're let go. I just think that people are going way too far with this sort of behavior and saying that some heads need to roll. No, they don't. An example needs to be made, but the example is, look, we don't like this behavior, and if you exhibit this behavior while working here, you will not work here. And because we know you've exhibited it in the past, there will not be a second chance. And I think that's a reasonable reaction.
Well, yeah, it's like I said before with the Chris Hardwick things like that. And I have to attribute it to like our new media landscape, but it's like none of these companies have policy in place for this. So that's why it's being handled so differently everywhere. And and then it's to what you're saying, like, yeah, people are out for blood because like just the climate of the world right now, like, it's like people, there doesn't have to be an example made. People want an example made. Like, people want to say, like, essentially, we got them, like, whatever, like each, and, if you want to divide it into sides, that's what's happening. Like, each side wants to be the side to say, we got them, they want to have that victory, which is then, of course, only going to spur the other side to retaliate. But essentially, yeah, like, if if you look at it like as an interpersonal reaction, a one-on-one, like that's what you would want. You would want the person to apologize, and but you would also want to like be sure that they weren't going to do it again. How does a major corporation or industry do that for an individual that is going to be represented to the masses?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's
Exactly.
that's a major challenge. So
Yeah.
that's why everyone's handling it differently, and that's why no one's satisfied.
Yeah. And to be fair, where that cutoff ends and begins, I have no idea. If this guy says it when he's 17, I'm not for him being fired. If this guy said it 7 months ago, oh, now I think we gotta look at it. You
Yeah.
know.
But then there's also that aspect of like people being called out and issuing like essentially non-apologies or half-assed apologies. Like,
Yeah, but even then, I'm of the mindset like, when is an apology ever good enough? What can you do without what? I don't know if there like for some people there is no such thing as a good enough apology, right? Once you say the N word, that's it. You're done. You like there is nothing you could do to say that you have regret because it's never going to be good enough.
well,
And so like a half-ass apology, all apologies are a bit half-ass because like if you didn't want to say it, you just wouldn't say it.
yeah, and I mean, like, I agree with you, but like, there's also like the point from this is that like words have power. So
Mm-hmm.
if you can say hurtful words, then there's somewhere in there. There's got to be like words that could potentially at least like
Yeah.
not fix the situation, but like absolve or redeem. Like you can redeem yourself using your words because you use words to get yourself into this situation.
Yeah. And I think overall, like all these stories all have again the same thing of perspective is don't just look at an action and react. Look at the cause and effect. Look at how things are from when the action happened versus now. There are some things that are so irredeemable, no matter how far back it happened. That's it. You're done. Look at fucking Bill Cosby. That there's nothing you can say. Oh, well, okay. Like the argument he tried to have is, well, everybody was popping Quaaludes back then.
Everybody was
Well,
raping. We were
well,
all
here's the
doing
thing.
it.
Everybody might have been popping Quaaludes, but nobody was raping people. And if they were, those fuckers need to go to jail too. So, uh, yeah, I honestly think that in this society, we need to stop freaking out over shit that doesn't matter because what ends up happening is we stop paying attention to shit that does. Everybody's so worried about Colin Kaepernick taking a knee, they're not paying attention to the guys that actually do beat the fuck out of their wives. And Colin Kaepernick can't get a job, but if you beat your wife, we'll see what we can do. If you take drugs, if you smoke weed, oh, we gotta make an example of you. But if you're fucking using fucking crystal meth or something, oh, you need help. Oh, we need to do something for you. Like, there's all these large reactionary things that, let's be honest, are probably based in some racial aspect, But I really think people need to when something happens, take a deep breath and go, is this that big of a deal? Even when Donald Trump says crazy, ridiculous shit, I react because I'm human and everybody's going to react. But at the same time, too, I also stop and look at it and go, is this worth me having a reaction that they want me to have? Because a lot of times they want you to react so that you stop looking at the shit that actually matters because that's really what they want, right? Don't look at what we're fucking up. Look at this one weird thing that I said that will give you talking points all day so you won't talk about the thing that's really fucking everybody over. So, for love of God, everybody, just have a little perspective. I think we'll all be better off for it.
Easier said than done, but I agree.
It's true, but if you don't try, then we know where we're gonna be. the same place we already are. All right, so this has been a rather long episode, and I knew it would be based on the topics we were going to be covering. But at the same time, I wanted to get them out of the way because as these stories got older, I didn't want to keep pushing them back, and the relevance, while still pertinent, won't be in the forefront of people's minds. So hopefully you guys appreciated and enjoyed the conversation. But nonetheless, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up unless you got something to add, Shiz.
No, it's late over here, so I definitely need to wrap this up.
She's like, no, I want to go to bed. Okay, well, fine. We'll hurry this up and wrap it up. So, Instagram and Twitter, @ThatOnePod. Email us at podthat@gmail.com. The Pippa shows.pippa.io/ThatOnePodcast. And if you go there, you get access to everything that you need to interact with us. So, thank you guys very much for listening. Hopefully, I can calm the fuck down and stop being annoyed by the goings on of day-to-day activity, but I got a feeling that won't stop. And why would it? You guys will be less entertained. Exactly. But, as always, everybody, I'm going to tell you, have a little perspective, but still, be nice to one another.